We got some more Lee Hegseth. Love talking about my favorite guy, Lee Hegseth. Took that one from Hassan. That's a good one by Hassan. A good one. I'm going to give him that. Is a military coup unfolding at the Pentagon? From our boy, Ken Klippenstein. The Hegseth scandal threatens civilian control of the military. Oh, great. Lovely. So, we all know that the Signal group chat leaked again. Sir, a second group chat leak has hit the Pentagon. We love that. But what we got here? Hegseth is a stupid Crusader LARPer. We all know this. He's drunk all the time because he's a Crusader LARPer. I mean, those guys were drunk all the fucking time. Like, banting about in Levant, trying to, like, kill a bunch of Saracens or whatever the fuck. But, whatever. Nice meme. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is embroiled in yet another scandal, but there's a far greater crisis lurking behind his leaky ship, one that has real consequences for America. It is a campaign of subversion carried out by the military brass, one that is undermining the very principle of civilian control in the military. Through leaks, forced firings, insubordination, other forms of bureaucratic intransience, the Pentagon bureaucracy is going out of its way to destroy his tenure, something he was plenty capable of himself. Yeah, like, I think I talked about this potential theory that, like, the Pentagon is not fucking happy with Pete Hegseth. And I was just like, is there, like, the chance that the brass themselves, because they're a bunch of, like, dumb fuck West Point fucking liberals or whatever, might just oust Pete Hegseth themselves because of just how ridiculously incompetent he's been. Like, this is a really good point here by Ken Klippenstein. This could, undermine the principle of civilian control of the military. That's true because, I mean, Pete Hegseth's like a veteran. He has been in the military. He has, like, experience, I guess, enough to be, like, a what? Fucking general or anything? To be Secretary of Defense? No. I mean, he's a complete dumbass, like, as you can clearly see by all the fucking Signal group chat leaks. But big meme, because typically it's supposed to be the Senate that is confirming the Secretary of Defense, and that's sort of the representation of the civilian, like, control of the military, because Congress is the one who approves the Secretary of Defense. But he pretty much was approved on partisan lines, so I know that a lot of the brass within the military is just like, fuck this guy, he's just a complete dumbass. As much as Hegseth's detractors might be right that he is chaotic and unqualified, a senior serving officer sent an email exchange with me this week. He has Senate confirmed it's up to Donald Trump to remove him, not the uninformed military, because they want someone else to lead them. That's so funny that it's put that way. I almost feel like this is like, this could be serious or it could be a fucking complete joke. Uninformed military. Yeah, the military. Very well known for being uninformed. Hegseth is, of course, a dumbass. He vows to bring back a warrior culture, but all I see is a culture warrior. His focus on fighting wokeness in the military is a tedious detour in AM radio slop, especially while the U.S. is engaged in real wars in Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and here at home. Uninformed military officers and Pentagon officials I've talked to agree with this assessment, and they agree that those trying to defeat Hegseth are operating dangerously outside their lane. As one said to me over the weekend, you can't say you're defending your oath in the Constitution while you're working to undermine it. That's a good point, Because, God, it's so fucking funny that, like, a sort of, like, pillar of, like, American sort of institutions and everything is potentially being undermined because of just how much of a fucking complete dumbass the one dude is. It's fucking hilarious to me. Caroline Levitt said Monday that the entire Pentagon is working against Hegseth. Whatever you think of Hegseth or the hyperbole, that's not good for America. That's true. We have a civilian in charge of the military, with the president as a commander-in-chief, to ensure that the military is accountable to the people and their elected representative, not to the whims of those in uniform. If there is one basic element in our Constitution, it is the civilian control of the military. President Harry Truman once said, generals and admirals don't decide their priorities or their budget. or even their own terms of service. Yeah, because obviously this could very, very easily lead down to like military dictatorship. As Secretary of Defense, Heggs is supposed to embody civilian control of the military, a civilian who oversees the Pentagon, not a part of it, yet his office has all been hollowed out in recent days, with 5 of his top aides being mysteriously drummed out. This includes, well, okay, those are the 5 dudes. Caldwell, one of the people fired, allude to the dynamic in a Monday interview. Let's be honest, everyone knows that that's the leaks. Knows where that's the coming from. What? Where that's coming from? That's at the leaks. Okay. It's from the career staff who don't like what the president, the secretary, and vice president want to do. There's people in the joint staff that I've come to respect, but a lot of them are incredibly hostile to the secretary, to the president, the vice president's worldview. Yeah, because it's kind of fucking dumb. They're a bunch of West Point liberals who probably disagree with the, all the willy-nilly fucking OPSEC leaks and shit like that, and they think that everyone is incredibly incompetent. Now, is it a good, it's understandable why they think like this, but what they're trying to do in order to, in terms of, trying to force people out, is, technically speaking, you could justify it as, a fucking military coup. Because of just how incompetent, how much of an idiot Hegseth is. Now, what would have been better for these guys to do is, instead of, randomly disappearing people, they should just, see if they can, nudge Congress into, doing something about this. Because I can guarantee you could probably get some Republicans on board, more neocon Republicans, on board with, getting rid of Pete Hegseth. So then they can have, a justification that way, but even then, it's, it's not great, really. It's just kind of fucking bad. For all the concerned people that have been, have been expressing about a constitutional crisis, we're closer to one than we are with immigration, a senior retired general officer tells me. As he and others I talked to have explained, Hegseth is being undermined and perhaps even drummed out of office by the uninformed military, aided by the permanent bureaucracy. One official told me that there had been tension between Hegseth's office and the top commander in the Middle East over policy and priorities. A senior military intelligence specialist told me that Hegseth is near universally loathed by the uninformed colleagues he works with. Because it makes sense, right? Why these people are probably really uninformed. They have no idea about these signal chats. They probably should be included. I guess it depends on, their classifications or whatever. Whatever. They're putting over, a bunch of classified information, and they're trying to make sure that it's not in the congressional records, which is illegal, so that these guys don't know about it and don't fucking leak anything to the press, right? They're trying to, do the worst OPSEC possible to keep OPSEC, away from themselves. Does it kind of make sense, They're doing really lazy operational security to try to, keep things out of the, the people who are way more fucking qualified in terms of operational security. It's so fucking cartoonishly stupid, dude. On the rare occasion these days that civilian control has been raised at all by the press, it's inverted to say the firing of this or that general somehow undermines civilian control of the military. Wait, what? On the rare occasion these days that civilian control has been raised at all by the press, it's inverted to say that the firing of this or that general somehow undermines civilian control of the military. Ah, okay, I see what's being said here. Yeah, that's not how that works, right? Because, the generals are, they're just suits for the most part. They're suits, they're bureaucrats. They get in there through, well, not by being voted in, generally speaking, right? It's a hierarchy. People get promoted through those positions. They're not, beholden to civilians, right? They don't have to be. These same stories often quote generals criticizing the firings with zero awareness of the irony. In some cases, civilian control is outright dismissed as an annoying detail. Former Council on Foreign Relations President Richard N. Haas scoffed at the relevance of civilian control on MSNBC's Morning Joe yesterday. You've got obviously civilian primacy, but you have a civilian in the Pentagon who's violating rules, he said. I mean, Pete Hegseth is very incompetent, but, the problem then, you shouldn't be criticizing, you should criticize Pete Hegseth for being a complete fucking moron, but more so you should be criticizing Congress for not trying to do anything possible to get him out. If it's because they're the ones who put him in there, they approved of him, so they should be the ones that get him out. Push something through the fucking House and the fucking Senate and have the president fucking sign it. But that's probably not going to happen because of how partisan it is. It's really fucking funny. Instead, what we get in the news media is a titillating blow-by-blow, with military brass leaking unflattering but often frivolous details about Hegseth's conduct. It is direct retaliation on the part of the bureaucracy, what Donald Trump calls the deep state. The one time, the whole fucking deep state thing is, actual unironic, retaliation. It's pretty fucking funny. I'm not comfortable with the cabal of officers agitating to undermine civilian control, the retired general officer says. He points out that liberals and Trump haters should be equally concerned. If Bernie Sanders were president and he was slashing the defense budget, I would imagine that people would be zealously defending him, saying that cutting back the military is the will of the American people, and that's why they elected him in the first place. That's why they elected him in the first place. That's true. That's true. More than just the abstract concerns about civilian control, the stakes are very real. Now, with departures of Hegseth's top civilian aides, the Pentagon brass is more empowered to run defense policy with minimal interference. This comes in context of a growing war on the southern border and ongoing tensions with Iran. Tensions which nearly culminated in a massive U.S.-Israeli strike, as the New York Times reported last week. Oh, really? They were going to fucking do it? I don't know, okay, the question is I don't know if I 100% agree with this. I understand, the sort of idea here, but, I feel like Hegseth would be, and his aides would probably be okay with going along with the brass on this one, right? But I guess it's, the problem is that the brass are more likely to want to do a strike because it's a bunch of neocons. That's a concern I can definitely understand, but, I feel like Hegseth would be okay with going along with it, he'd be fine with it. The brass says, yeah, we can, hit Iran. Just, hit these facilities and it'll do damage. And if you're, I don't know, persuading enough to him, he could probably just go along with it, right? I mean, I don't think that's, beneath Hegseth. And then that wouldn't be what? Hegseth being, incompetent or whatever. If you'd just be going along with the military brass. With the bureaucracy in the military. As the Times describes it, while Trump officials oppose military action, including Hegseth, Michael Eric Kurilla, the 4-star Army general and leader of U.S. Central Command, wanted to join Israel. Really? That's interesting that they actually decided to fucking oppose military action. Oh, that's fascinating. I guess they still want to maintain the sort of anti-war sort of justification thing. That's fascinating. I wasn't expecting that. The military was scrambling to develop an operations plan to attack Iran, largely according to the Times because Kurilla was nearing retirement and wanted to go out with a bang. Yeah. Just like how Pete Hegseth's the dumbass fucking culture warrior. Well, it turns out, same with a lot of these, stupid, dumb fuck generals. All they care about is their own fucking personal glory. This is, what is this, some fucking weird 40K shit? That is ridiculous. With a record number of B-2 bombers and 2 aircraft carriers deployed in the region, the military is doing what it does, which is to be ready when the President and the Secretary of Defense gives the order. But a military commander going rogue and preparing for a strike with the added danger that he maneuvers his forces in such a way to possibly cause an inadvertent war, that's the very reason the Secretary of Defense is in the chain of command. Yeah, so they can be the final say. I understand, yeah, you should make fun of Pete Hegseth, but yeah, this is probably much worse. I was memeing about it, because I mentioned in the video before, when the fucking group chat leak was reported on, it's just dude, is there gonna be a fucking coup by the brass to try to get rid of this guy because of how much of an idiot he is? That's fucking crazy, but it could fucking happen. Part of the reason civilian control gets so little attention is because of how much it's been eroded already. When Barack Obama became president, he hired a retired general to be his national security advisor. and he hired retired generals and admirals as CIA director and the director of national intelligence. Yeah, it makes sense. So for like, he puts in the retired like general people because, well, it seemed like, oh, they have experience with these manners, but they could just like go along with like what the sort of military brass can just go along with it. Obama was clearly trying to shore up his national security credentials, but the move also politicized the military and that these were Democrat generals and admirals. Since then, some of the appointees, Mike Hayden, for example, have been vociferous Trump critics and regulars on the partisan circuit. I find it interesting that these are like wouldn't most of these Democrats already, like generals already be like Democrats, right? Because again, a lot of these dudes go to the same like military academies to get highly fucking educated, right? So they're probably going to be more liberals in general. This isn't just a Democrat problem, though. When Donald Trump nominated retired Marine Corps General James Mattis, the warrior monk, to be his first Secretary of Defense in 2017, it was the first time since 1950 that a retired general had been selected for the civilian position, and only the second time in U.S. history. Retired generals are forbidden by law from serving as defense secretary before a 7-year cooling off period, but Trump waived the requirement because he couldn't find like any other dipshit to probably do it. That's why, or that's potentially a reason why. Mattis ended up quitting because of a dispute with Donald Trump over the president's desire to remove U.S. troops from Syria, but the tenure left behind a sense that a retired general knew better, because the opposite of what the Constitution sought to establish. Basically, the opposite of what the Constitution sought to establish. That is pretty interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, to be honest, right? Because, like, Trump's an idiot, and he's being framed by the media as an idiot, which is a correct framing. He is an idiot. But it allows for more fucking... It's, it's the whole thing with the fucking propaganda and shit like that, more sinister potential actors can get in, take advantage of the chaos in order to, well, undermine certain parts of the Constitution. When Joe Biden became president, he selected retired Army General Lloyd Austin to be his Secretary of Defense. Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, a member of the Armed Services Committee and a Marine Corps veteran, voted against Austin. Per his statement, history shows that Congress has long respected and taken seriously the requirement of civilian control and provided a waiver for only the most exceptional circumstances. I do not believe we find ourselves in such circumstances today. Senior military officials also tell me that many of the top military commanders bristle because the Secretary of Defense was only a major when he served in the military and thus is far beneath them. Yeah, again, it's like the fucking, the strict fucking hierarchy of control, right? A lot of people in the military are going to be quite pissed about being commanded by a guy who's got a lower rank than them and is just, like, seen as unqualified. Now, they're not wrong when they call him unqualified, but, he's more of a fucking civilian than he is than, the most of the military brass who, again, are, private individuals who aren't, like, voted in there. They're not voted in by the people. A lot of them, join the military and rise up through the ranks, get, like, their qualifications that way, go to a lot of, like, military academies to learn about, like, doctrine and strategy and shit like that, and, become, well, more or less unaccounted for bureaucrats that no one fucking voted for. Congressman Adam Smith, ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, even told Anderson Cooper yesterday that Trump's new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kine, seems like a decent person, but he's only a 3-star general, to give you a sense of the world's obsession with rank. Dude, fucking hierarchy, bro. I invited the congressman to consider how many wars his brilliant 4 stars have won. Why should they be in charge? That's a good question. These are really good points, yeah. Undermining of civilian control of the military can certainly be a problem, right? Because, like, I meme saying, like, is, like, the military gonna do a fucking coup of fucking Pete Hegseth or some shit because of how incompetent he is? That would be fucking wild if that would happen. And yeah, I definitely do think that would probably not be a good thing. If it's Trump removing him, then I think that's obviously, like, fine. It's Trump getting rid of him because of how incompetent he is. But, more than likely, another fucking, like, retired general is probably gonna go in his fucking place or some shit, right? Like, that's what always seems to happen. But what? As per NPR, the White House is looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. And better than the military doing a coup. It's begun the process of looking for a new leader of the Pentagon, according to a U.S. official who was not authorized to speak publicly. This comes as Hegseth is again mired in controversy over sharing operational details. He's under fire after revelations that he shared classified information in a group chat with his wife, brother, and lawyer, according to the official. It's so fucking dumb that he's doing that. Jesus. Source with Hegseth using the Signal messaging app on his personal smartphone, detailing minute-by-minute classified information about airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen. Happened at the same time in March. That leak hours before strikes could have endangered U.S. pilots. Already, the Houthis have shot down 2 American Predator drones. Trying to see if there's like anything interesting being said here. While White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denied that there was an effort to replace Hegseth, posting on X that President Trump stands strongly behind him. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump backed Hegseth and said concerns over the Signal chats are a waste of time. We saw the interview. He's doing a great job. Ask the Houthis how he's doing. I mean, he's bombed like random civilians, but like, you know, whatever, dude. Hegseth denied wrongdoing. Is what the media does. Yeah, it's saying to try to slash and burn people, ruin their reputation. Not gonna work with me. I don't know, buddy. You already did that with the big fucking league, but it's whatever. Exit was likely referring to 4 senior advisors who left the Pentagon abruptly last week. Former Defense Department spokesperson. Yeah, these are the people who got fired. 3 other dudes did a they did a joint statement calling their dismissal unconscionable and saying they have not been told what they stand accused of leaking. Well, I do kind of think, yeah, it makes sense to like, yeah, why the fuck did we get kicked out? I think these guys who got kicked out are probably like collateral damage because the military, like the brass broadly speaking, I think they know that if they were to try to like get rid of and fire Pete Hegseth, well, they know that they can't. They can't actually do that. And if they were to do that, what they would be doing is unconstitutional. Like, it would make them look really, really bad. All 3 of us served our country honorably in uniform. For 2 of us, this included deployments, yada, yada, yada. Based on our collective service, we understand the importance of information security and worked every day to protect it. You know, we have no idea if they, like, even caused anything. Caldwell and Selnick are longtime associates. New Hampshire Senator Jean Shaheen, a Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, said in a statement that Hegseth should accept responsibility. But we must not forget that ultimate responsibility here lies with President Trump for selecting a former weekend TV host. This is the thing that fucking Ken Klippenstein was saying before, obviously, about, like, you know, how Democrats will, like, hand-wring over, like, experience. Democrats and Republicans will, like, hand-wring over fucking experience being the most important thing. That rank is the most important thing. When Secretary of Defense should be a civilian-held position, because it can be held accountable to the people. Without any experience successfully leading a large and complex organization to run our government's biggest department and make life and death decisions for our military and country, she said. But yeah, that's like the thing that was mentioned earlier. You know, it's like, oh, it's more important that we have like experienced people. We need to have like retired generals who are more than likely going to go along with the bureaucracy because they're generals or whatever, and not be as held accountable to the president or to the people or whatever. But, like, I also argue, like, to really how much is that the case, right? Like, the presidents, generally speaking, have just gone along with a lot of, like, stupid, bloody, like, strikes and warmongering, because, you know, let's be honest here, every fucking president has been a fucking warmonger ever since, like, ever since 9/11. It's been really bad, right? So, like, can you make the argument that there is any more, like, sort of civilian control of like, the military or something? You know, that there's civilian accountability? Not really, given, like, how much power has been given to, like, the executive branch. But, you know, I do overall, like, agree with the sort of sentiment that is being put here because, like, yeah, I mean, if you put, like, former military brass into, like, important, like, positions of power, like that are supposed to be held by like average civilians, it's can be a lot of consequences because they could just go along with what the brass is saying, for example, and it's just like, well, then who has control? Is it is this being held accountable to the civilians? Well, no, not really. But then again, I think that's just been like broken like forever ago, right? Like that's already been like sort of worked around. I don't know. That's really all I have to overall say. Is civilian control, civilian sort of control and accountability being undermined of the military because of like shit like this? A potential fucking military coup at the fucking Pentagon because of how incompetent Pete Hegseth is. Maybe, yeah, probably. I think that's not hyperbolic to say at all. But they're gonna like frame it in such a way that like, oh no, there's like nothing really going on here, guys. He just got gotten rid of because he's like a complete incompetent. Now a more like competent person is now put into place. It's really interesting how it took like Trump to really like sort of test the limits for as to like how bad it could potentially get for like a fucking issue like this, even though it's like because of Obama this became like a precedent and shit like that. Thanks, Obama. Good work as always. Yeah, I don't know. Not really much else to say about that, but besides like, guys, I think it might be bad that the military brass might be trying to take over the Pentagon, and I guess this is sort of the byproducts of putting in like, I don't know, someone who's such a fucking idiot into power. But again, like it's so multifaceted. There's like it's like you just basically blame everyone here, and like it doesn't matter who you like blame here. It's all equally like makes sense. Like blame Congress for voting in Hegseth, blame fucking military brass for trying to undermine civilian control and undermine the Constitution, blame fucking Trump for putting in this complete fucking moron into power. Yeah, that's really all there is to say about it.